General Rodel Hobson. Nominee po party list.
Happy birthday. Happy day. Stay in love. Naks naman. Kinikilig.
Kapitbahay ko po yung past year or 2 years. Anak niya po. Kapitbahay ko po. Sir,
We're in good hands.
We're in good
Basta
hands.
sir,
General
at your service, sir. Sir? Parating, sir.
Ang alin, ma'am? Pero, pero nauna na yun. Iba na tayo ngayon ah.
Naka-ready na sir.
Register na po lahat na yun.
You're not changing it. Pero mukhang mahaba yung privilege. Huwag na sana. I was asking. Ako kinakabahan lang. Yes, please. Yes. Session is called to order. All please rise for the Philippine National Anthem.
Bayang magiliw, pero sa silanganan, alam ng puso, sa titik mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, tuyak ka ng magiting, sa manlulupi, di ka masisingil. Sa dagat at bundok, sa simoy at sa langit mong baka, may nilagang tula at awit sa paglayang minamahal. Ang kisap ng wataw at mo'y tagumpay na nagtitigil. Ang bituin at araw niya kailan pa may magdidilim. Lupa ng araw ng waraming pagsinta, buhay ay langit sa piling ko. Aming ligaya dapat may mga ating at namatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Please remain standing for the invocation to be delivered by the Honorable Rowena Nina O. Taduran of the party list Act CIS.
Let us put ourselves in the presence of our Lord. Holy Father in heaven, you are our God and Savior, and earnestly we seek you. We raise to you today the members and the Filipino people represented by each of us here at the House of Representatives. We ask what only you can give. We ask for calm, for clarity, and that we may always be aware of your continual presence among us. As we continuously fight the unseen threat that is COVID-19, give us the grace to hear your voice and the strength to continue working for your kingdom in this time of pandemic. Do not allow us to be indifferent to those who today suffer the loss of a loved one or who suffer from the absence of work, but give us the courage to accompany and side with those who suffer violence or injustice. We include in prayers the swift passage of the proposed national budget for 2022. Guide us so that such funds may be utilized for the good of everyone, that this may be an opportunity to start rebuilding our nation back to its glory, so that we may start healing where we need to heal. Daunting as the job may be, guide us with your divine grace so that proposed legislations for deliberation may be scrutinized with sound judgment and good intention. Lord God, as the national election also approaches, we seek to better understand the issues and concerns that confront our country and how the gospel compels us to respond as faithful citizens of this nation. We ask for eyes that are free from blindness so that we might see each other as brothers and sisters, one and equal in dignity, especially those who are victims of abuse and violence, deceit and poverty. We pray for discernment so that we may choose leaders who hear your word, live your love, and keep in the ways of your truth. All this we lift to you, Almighty God. By your grace, thy will be done. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we call the roll of members.
Is there any objection? The chair hears none. Motion is approved, and the Secretary General is directed to read the called roll of members.
Roll call of members, honorable representatives. Abante, Abaya, Abellanosa, Abu, Abueg Saldivar, Abunda, Acosta, Acosta Alba, Adyong, Advincula, Agabas, Agaraw, Aglipay, Aguinaldo, Albano, Almario, Alonte, Alvarez Franz, Alvarez Genaro, Alvarez Pantaleon, Amante Matba, Amatong, Angara, Aragones, Arbison, Arenas, Arroyo, Atienza, Omentado, Babasa, Bagatsing, Balindong, Banyas Nograles, Barba, Barbers, Baronda, Barzaga, Baskug, Bautista, Bautista Bandigan, Belmonte, Benitez, Bernos, Biazon, Billones, Biron, Bolilia, Bondok, Bordado, Bravo, Brosas, Bulut, Bustos, Kabatbat, Cabochan, Cabredo, Cagas, Calderon, Calixto, Caminero, Campos, Canama, Kawagdan, Cardema, Cari, Castelo, Castro Franz, Castro Fredenil, Cayetano Alan, Cayetano Laarni, Celeste, Chato, Chipeco, Chungalao, Co Angelica, Co Elizaldi, Co Juanco, Coliantes, Crisologo, Cua, Quaresma, Cueva, Culyamat, Dagoo, Dalipe, Dalog, Daza, De Jesus, De Venecia, Defensor Lawrence, Defensor Michael, De Los Santos, De Loso Montalia, Dimaporo Abdullah, Dimaporo Khalid, Duavi, Duhali, Duterte, D. Faustino Ino, D. Faustino Michael, D. Ian, Ebcas, Ecleo, Elago, Enverga, Erice, Erigel, Ermita Buhain, Escudero, Espina, Espino, Estrella, Fariñas Ria, Fariñas Rudis, Fernandez, Fernando, Ferrer Juliet, Ferrer Luis, Flores, Fortuno, Frasco, Fuentebella, Gaite, Garbin, Garcia Jose Enrique, Garcia Pablo Jan, Garcia Vincent, Garin Janet, Garin Sharon, Gasataya, Gatchalian, Gato, Heron, Go Ed, Go Mark, Gonzaga, Gonzales Aurelio, Gonzales Neptali, Gonzales Sandro, Goriseta, Gico, Gulyas, Guya, Haresco, Hataman, Hernandez, Herrera D, Hofer, Haloshos, Javier, Jimenez, Ko Elisa, Ko Wilton, Konghun, Labad-Labad, Lacson, Lacson Noel, Lagman, Lagon, Lara, Lazatin, Liachon, Legarda, Lim, Lim Kaichong, Lopez, Loyola, Lusotan, Macapagal Arroyo, Maceda, Madrona, Malapitan, Mangawang, Mangudadatu, Marcoleta, Mariano Hernandez, Marinho, Marquez, Martinez, Matba, Matugas, Mendoza, Momo, Natividad Naganyo, Nava, Nieto, Noel, Nograles Jericho, Nograles Fidel, Nolasco, Nunez Malaniaon, Oaminal, Olivares, Ong Jose, Ong Ronnie, Ordanes, Ortega, Uwano Dizon, Pacquiao Alberto, Pacquiao Rogelio, Padiernos, Paduano, Palma, Pancho, Panotes, Peña, Pichay, Pimentel, Pineda, Plaza, Puno, Kimbo, Radaza, Ramirez Sato, Remulla, Revilla, Reyes, Rivera, Robes, Rodriguez, Roman, Romero, Romualdez Martin, Romualdez Yeda, Romualdo, Romulo, Roque, Sakdalan, Sagarbaria, Sakaluran, Salceda, Salimbangon, Salo, Salvador Tambunting, Sanchez, Sangkopan, Santos Recto, Sarmiento, Saulug, Savellano, Xiao, Silverio, Singson, Singson Mihan, Sinsuwat, Swansing Estrelita, Swansing Horacio, Suarez Aleta, Suarez David, Suntay, C. Alvarado, Taduran, Talyado, Tan Alaysa, Tan Angelina, Tan Samir, Tan Sharian, Tan Sherny, Tejada, Teves Arnolfo, Teves Jose, Tiangco, Tolentino, Torres Gomez, Tulfo, Tupas, Chutor, T. Alan, T. Diego, Umali Alfonso, Umali Victoria, Unabia, Ungab, Uy Juliet, Uy Rolando, Valeriano, Valmayor, Vargas, Vargas Alfonso, Velasco, Veloso, Vergara, Villa, Villafuerte, Villanueva Eduardo, Villanueva Noel, Villar, Villaraza Suarez, Villarica, Violago, Yap Eric, Yap Victor, Yu, Zamora Ronaldo, Zamora Waikurat, Zarate Zubiri. Mr. Speaker, the roll call shows the 298 members responded to the call.
With 298 members responding to the call, the chair declares the presence of a quorum. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move for the approval of the following journals. Journal number 18 for our session on December 6, 2021, and Journal number 19 for our session dated December 7, 2021. So moved, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection? The chair hears none. Motion is approved, and journals number 18 and 19, dated Monday, December 6, 2021, and Tuesday, December 7, 2021, are hereby approved. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we proceed with the reference of business, and may I request that the Secretary General be directed to read the titles of the bills and resolutions on first reading, as well as our communications and committee reports.
Is there any objection? The chair hears none. Motion is approved, and the Secretary General is directed to read bills on first reading for referral to the appropriate committees.
Reference of business, bills on first reading, House Bill number 10572, providing for free professional examinations to qualified indigents by Representative Yap Eric.
To the Committee on Civil Service and Professional Regulation.
House Bill number 10573, establishing a TESDAT district office in the city of Davao by Representative Duterte.
To the Committee on Higher and Technical Education.
House Bill number 10574, amending sections 6B and 8 of the Bureau of Corrections Act of 2013 by Representative Biazon.
To the Committee on Public Order and Safety.
House Bill number 10577, establishing job placement offices in public high schools to provide career services to the youth by Representative Nieto.
To the Committee on Labor and Employment.
House Bill number 10578, instituting a national land use and management policy by Representatives Hernandez, Akdalan, Kawagdan, Tejada, Pacquiao, Rogelio, and Baños Nograles.
To the Committee on Land Use.
House Bill number 10580, converting the LTO e-Patrol office in Sulop, Davao del Sur into a regular district office by Representative Cagas.
To the Committee on Transportation.
Resolutions. House Resolution 2394, urging the Special Committee on Creative Industry and Performing Arts and other appropriate committees of the House to inquire on the state of the Philippine esports industry and other related industries by Representatives De Venecia and Garin Sharon.
To the Committee on Rules.
House Resolution 2396, urging the Committee on Human Rights to investigate the reported indiscriminate aerial bombings conducted by the AFP in Miagao, Iloilo by Representatives Culiamat, Zarate, Gaite, Castro Franz, Brosas, and Elago.
To the Committee on Rules.
House Resolution 2397, directing the Committee on Good Government and Public Accountability to investigate the alleged use losses in the investments of the SSS and GSIS in the shares of Megawide Construction Corporation by Representatives Zarate, Gaite, and Culiamat.
To the Committee on Rules.
House Resolution 2398, urging the Committee on Natural Resources and other appropriate committees to inquire on the conduct of the DNR regional officials in carrying out their powers and functions and limitations on issues involving people's organizations under the community-based forest management agreements by Representative Kabatbat.
To the Committee on Rules.
House Resolution 2399, congratulating and commending composer Denise Santos for winning Outstanding Music Composition for the BBC documentary Primates in the 42nd Annual News and Documentary Emmy Awards by Representatives Velasco, De Venecia, Nograles, Jericho, Kimbo, Maceda, Rodriguez, Tambunting, Barba, Escudero, Sevillano, Singson Mihan, Arroyo, Alonte, Santos Recto, Co Angelica, Vargas, Lim, Belmonte, Benitez, Arenas, Quaresma, Erigel, Robes, Vergara, Grisologo, Bolilla, Frasco, Legarda, Gomark, Suntay, Fernandez, Salceda, and Nieto.
To the Committee on Creative Industry and Performing Arts.
House Resolution 2400, congratulating and commending visual artist Michael Garcia Villagante for winning the highest award for his artwork, Ang Pagtahan, at the 13th Florence Biennial 2021 by Representatives Velasco, De Venecia, Nograles, Jericho, Kimbo, Maceda, Rodriguez, Tambunting, Barba, Escudero, Sevillano, Singson Mihan, Arroyo, Alonte, Santos Recto, Co Angelica, Vargas, Lim, Belmonte, Benitez, Arenas, Quaresma, Erigel, Robes, Vergara, Crisologo, Bolilla, Frasco, Legarda, Gomark, Suntay, Fernandez, Salceda, and Nieto.
To the Special Committee on Creative Industry and Performing Arts.
House Resolution 2401, expressing the profound condolences of the House on the passing of Mrs. Leticia Lolita Apong Lolet Olalia Hizon by Representatives Velasco, De Venecia, Nograles, Jericho, Kimbo, Maceda, Rodriguez, Tambunting, Barba, Escudero, Sevillano, Singson Mihan, Arroyo, Alonte, Santos Recto, Co Angelica, Vargas, Lim, Belmonte, Benitez, Arenas, Quaresma, Erigel, Robes, Vergara, Crisologo, Bolilla, Frasco, Legarda, Gomark, Suntay, Fernandez, Salceda, and Nieto.
To the Committee on Rules.
House Resolution 2402, honoring the life and legacy of renowned Filipino photographer Bien S. Bautista and expressing the sincerest condolences and profound sympathies of the House to the bereaved family over his passing by Representative Tambunting.
To the Committee on Rules.
House Resolution 2403, commending Philippine Air Force Commander Major General Allen Paredes for his exemplary work in leading the Philippine Air Force by Representatives Romero and Aglipay.
To the Committee on National Defense and Security.
Messages from the Senate. Message dated December 1, 2021, informing the House that the Senate on even date passed House Bill 76 without amendment.
To the Committee on Rules.
Message dated December 1, 2021, informing the House that on even date, the Senate approved Conference Committee report of the Bicameral Conference Committee on the disagreeing votes on House Bill number 8882.
To the Committee on Rules.
Message dated December 6, 2021, informing the House that the Senate on December 1, 2021, passed with amendments House Bill number 10153 and designated Senators Angara, Zubiri, Villar, De La Rosa, Cayetano, Gatchalian, Go, Gordon, Ontiveros, Marcos, Villanueva, Poe, and Binay as its conferees to the Bicameral Conference Committee.
To the Committee on Rules.
Messages dated December 7, 2021, informing the House that the Senate on December 6, 2021, passed with amendments House Bill numbers 8741, 8753, 8755, 8861, 8862, 8871, 8872, 8873, 8877, 8901, 8911, 8913, 8973, 8977, and 9272.
To the Committee on Legislative Franchises.
Communication. Email dated December 3, 2021 from San Luis, Pampanga, informing the House of their reports on fund utilization and status of programs, projects, activities, implementation relative to LGSFs and financial assistance to LGUs for September and October 2021.
To the Committee on Appropriations.
Committee reports. Report number 1370 of the Committee on Good Government and Public Accountability on House Resolution 1751. Report number 1371 of the Committee on Banks and Financial Intermediaries on House Bill number 10581. Report number 1372 of the Committee on Rural Development on House Bill number 10582. Report number 1373 of the Committees on Health and Appropriations on House Bill number 10583. Report number 1374 of the Committees on Higher and Technical Education and Appropriations on House Bill number 10589. Report numbers 1375 and 1376 of the Committee on Local Government on House Bill numbers 10590 and 10591. Report number 1377 of the Committee on Public Order and Safety on House Bill number 10610. Report number 1378 of the Committee on Natural Resources on House Bill number 10611.
All aforementioned committee reports are referred to the Committee on Rules. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, today being a Monday, I move that we open the privilege hour.
Is there any objection? The Chair hears none. Motion is approved and the Chair declares a privilege hour. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, to avail of the privilege hour, I move that we recognize the Honorable Jose Enrique Joet S. Garcia of the 2nd District of Bataan for his privileged speech.
The Honorable Jose Enrique Joet S. Garcia III of the 2nd District of Bataan is recognized for his privileged speech.
Mr. Speaker, distinguished members, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. For more than 8 years, my father, Congressman Tet Garcia, and I, a substitute petitioner after his untimely demise, together with Governor Hermilando Mandanas, unrelentingly pursued before the Supreme Court the rectification of a grievous error that deprived local government units of their correct just share in national taxes. Finally, daylight emerged when the Supreme Court en banc promulgated its decision on the 3rd of July 2018, declaring that Congress exceeded its constitutional boundary when it limited to the internal revenue taxes the base from which to compute the just share of LGUs in national taxes. While Governor Mandanas pleaded for the inclusion of the Bureau of Customs tax collections covering excise, VAT, and DST, Congtet clearly articulated in his petition the constitutional provision that it should be based on all national taxes. Thus, the Supreme Court agreed and declared the phrase internal revenue unconstitutional and deleted it from sections 284, 285, 287, and 290 of the Local Government Code. Regrettably, the victory was incomplete because the Supreme Court denied our plea for the settlement by the national government of arrears in the just share of LGUs by declaring that the decision shall only have prospective application. Incomplete as it is, the decision nonetheless marked the day when the LGUs can already look forward to the implementation of the decision and commence to receive what was eagerly anticipated to be a substantially increased just share in national taxes. But the fight for the LGUs to truly receive their just share in national taxes never seems to end, and their dream of full empowerment remains elusive. Undoubtedly, the Garcia-Mandanas ruling is not about devolution. It is all about pursuing the LGU's just share in national taxes, an indispensable component to greater autonomy and capacity for self-government. There is nothing in the decision that ordered the national government to devolve functions at once, simultaneous with the inclusion of all national taxes in the LGU's just share. However, instead of faithfully implementing the ruling according to the clear disposition therein, the national government appears to be more preoccupied in finding ways to cushion the impact of what it perceived to be an added burden of funding, the increased just share. In so doing, it continues to undermine the positive impact of the ruling and effectively negates the primary intent of CONGTET in pursuing the LGU's entitlement from the increase. First, the sudden thrust to implement full devolution negates any flexibility of the LGUs to direct the utilization of their increased share in national taxes to priority programs, projects, activities, and services. In National Budget Memorandum 138, the DBM espoused full devolution as part of its continuing budget reform and strategy for rolling out the decision. Anticipating the greater access to funds due to the expected increase of LGU's just share in national taxes, the DBM advocated that the LGU should correspondingly bear the cost of carrying out the devolved services. This policy is now officially decreed in Executive Order 138. Lamentably, by tying the increased just share with the responsibility to fund the devolved functions, the national government is actually poised to implement the Garcia-Mandanas ruling without the slightest necessity of shelling out additional funding for the increase. In the guise of a continuing budget reform strategy, the national government actually manages to maintain the status quo on the level of its spending in favor of LGUs while demonstrating at the same time its compliance with the ruling. However, bundling the payment of the increased just share with the corresponding shift in responsibility for funding the devolved functions effectively eliminates the flexibility that is provided by the LGU's greater access to funds, courtesy of the corrected just share. In a paper entitled Fiscal Sustainability, Equity and Allocative Efficiency in the Light of the 2019 Supreme Court ruling on LGU share in national taxes, which was released by the Philippine Institute of Development Studies through former senior research fellow Rosario Manasan, it is estimated that about 247 billion worth of program spending can be transferred to LGUs based on the general devolved functions provided in the local government code, as well as selected programs, projects, and activities which are local in scope. Assuming this is the corresponding cost of the functions to be fully devolved to LGUs pursuant to EO number 138, the increase in the share of LGUs as a result of the implementation of the ruling amounting to 185 billion is clearly insufficient to cover the estimated cost of the devolved functions. Simply put, instead of benefiting from the increased share, LGUs stand to assume greater responsibilities that cannot even be absorbed by their share in national taxes. This impending burden can hardly be cushioned by the 3-year implementation of full devolution until 2024, as indicated in EO 138. Given this predicament, it is imperative to know the answers to the following questions. First, what exactly is the corresponding cost to the national government of the functions it is now devolving to LGUs? Second, is the projected increase in the just share of LGUs from national taxes sufficient to cover the cost and maintain the same level of services that were made available to constituents prior to the implementation of the Garcia-Mandanas ruling? Third, is the 3-year period sufficient to allow LGUs to transition into a fully devolved regime? Did the LGU's preparation of the devolution transition plans consider the availability of funds to implement full devolution within the 3-year period? I understand that during the LGU's consultation with the national government, their clamor for a longer transition period of at least 5 years was ignored. Fourth, what percent of LGUs need support from the national government for devolved functions? Fifth, why did the national government not pursue full devolution over the past decades and now suddenly push for an accelerated devolution of functions within 3 years? In fact, if we look back, Mr. Speaker, NGAs whose functions have been devolved, such as the Department of Health and the Department of Social Welfare and Development, were always given billions in annual appropriations instead of gradually transferring such resources to LGUs. Mr. Speaker, I'm not against the idea of full devolution. After all, this policy has long been set in our Constitution and spelled out in the Local Government Code. What I am worried about is the timing with which the policy is now being pushed, and the reason this is being resorted to is due to the Garcia-Mandanas ruling. For 30 long years, LGUs were deprived of their correct share in national taxes. Over the same period, LGUs struggled to become self-reliant and self-sufficient, unaware that a significant portion of their just share is unduly withheld due to a seemingly innocuous error that circumscribed the tax base from which the share of LGUs shall be computed. That amount withheld could have spelled a big difference in the readiness of LGUs to assume the responsibilities of fully devolved national government functions. By now abruptly implementing full devolution, LGUs will be compelled to utilize their increased just share to the devolved functions instead of affording them the opportunity to catch up and make up for the lost opportunities to develop, become more self-reliant, and precisely to capacitate themselves in a fully devolved regime. Second, the Department of Finance made questionable exclusions that reduce LGU's just share in national taxes. In its previous briefings with LGUs, the Department of Budget and Management initially estimated that the 40% share of LGUs from national taxes for fiscal year 2022 amounts to 1.083 trillion pesos, compared to the estimated internal revenue allotment level of 848 billion for the same fiscal year. Without the ruling, the adjusted share will increase by 234 billion or 27% more. It is also 56% higher compared to the actual ERA level of 695 billion pesos in 2021. Eventually, however, the DOF disclosed that the total tax collections in 2019 amounted to 2.828 trillion. Out of this total collections, the DOF deducted the amount of 431 billion, representing alleged legitimate exclusion from national taxes, to arrive at the national tax base of 2.397 trillion pesos. With this NTB, the 40% national tax allotment of LGUs included in the proposed 2022 General Appropriations Act now amounts only to 959 billion pesos. The deductions reduce the share of LGUs by 124 billion pesos compared to the 1.083 trillion initially estimated by the DBM. An analysis made by the League of Provinces of the Philippines, however, revealed that some items deducted from the total tax collections in the amount of 87 billion do not meet the criteria prescribed in the Garcia-Mandanas ruling to be validly excluded from the tax base for computing the LGU share in national taxes. These invalid deductions include 5% block grant to BARM, Agriculture Competitiveness Enhancement Fund, Rice Competitiveness Enhancement Fund, safeguard duties for DA, DTI, and the Tariff Commission, Bureau of Fire Support Fund, PSC share from imported athletic equipment, 1% Special Education Fund. To recall, the Supreme Court held in the decision that Congress can validly exclude taxes that will constitute the base amount for the computation of the ERA only if a constitutional provision allows such exclusion. Unlike the tax collections recognized by the Supreme Court as valid exclusions from the national taxes by virtue of constitutional sanction, the aforementioned deductions do not demonstrate or trace their imposition from any constitutional prescription. Absent any constitutional basis, the foregoing collections cannot be permitted to be excluded from the national tax base. Their unwarranted exclusion by the DOF resulted in the unjustifiable reduction of the LGU's just share in national taxes by about 35 billion pesos. Mr. Speaker, also in determining the internal revenue allotment of LGUs in previous years, the Development Budget Coordinating Committee, or DBCC, issued Resolution number 2003-02 defining the revenue base of the ERA. Notably, the DBCC never circularized any similar or amendatory issuance to implement the Garcia-Mandanas ruling. I have asked the DBM for a copy of any issuance amending DBCC Resolution number 2003-02 or any other resolution providing for the guidelines in implementing the Supreme Court decision. I was told that DBM cannot provide a copy of such resolution as of yet pending discussion and approval of the policy on sharing information on DBCC decisions, agreements, or resolutions. Mr. Speaker, I wonder why a DBCC policy that is of vital concern to LGUs because it involves how their just share in national taxes is actually computed after the landmark ruling is being withheld from the same LGUs whose interests are directly affected. How can the DBCC be transparent when all concerned parties have not yet been furnished with the details on how the Supreme Court decision made way back in 2019 is being implemented? Had there been any issuance to that effect and was made available to LGUs and all others concerned, issues about the base of the LGU's adjusted just share in national taxes, as well as the allowable exclusions thereon, would have been threshed out in a timely fashion and the computation made more transparent. The lack of transparency in determining the adjusted share of LGUs pursuant to the ruling compels me to seek an investigation by the appropriate committee of the House to inquire into the validity of excluding various items from national tax base with a view of recommending administrative or legislative policies that shall guide our fiscal managers in accurately determining the just share of LGUs in national taxes and ensuring transparency. Let me reiterate that the Garcia-Mandanas ruling is not about how devolution is supposed to be implemented, but the pursuit of the LGU's just share in national taxes. This is the embodiment of CONGTET's vision of providing full empowerment to all LGUs across the country for them to effectively fulfill their mandates. The Constitution did not only confer upon them broader power to create their own sources of revenue, it also guaranteed them their just share in the national taxes. LGUs have always been in the forefront of providing for the basic needs of the people. In fact, the national government heavily relied on the LGUs in carrying out vital COVID-19 responses, such as contact tracing, testing, isolation, quarantine, vaccination, and such other related services. But we should not lose sight that their responses became more effective because of the support from the national government. The LGU's resources are stretched to the limit due to the ongoing health crisis. It will certainly take years for the LGUs to recover and continue with stalled, discontinued, or temporarily abandoned development projects because of the reallocation of their resources in the continuing effort to contain COVID-19. This makes their need for continuing support from the national government even more imperative. I therefore appeal, Mr. Speaker, to our President, Rodrigo Roa Duterte, who has openly advocated federalism, to put an end to a centralized form of government for an equitable distribution of national wealth across the country. We need our economic and fiscal managers to abide by the clear and unequivocal ruling in the Garcia-Mandanas decision, compute and automatically release to the LGUs their correct, just share in national taxes, and ensure that full devolution is reasonably implemented, taking into account the realities and peculiar circumstances of LGUs while maintaining full and continuous support for local projects and services needed by our LGUs. With less than a year left in your term, Mr. President, our push towards federalism can no longer be attained, but the proper implementation of the Garcia-Mandanas ruling is our last chance to leave a federalist legacy in the government. As I mentioned in my privileged speech in 2018, CONGTET's vision of full LGU empowerment is a fitting prelude to federalism. Mr. Speaker, the 2022 General Appropriations Act is yet to be approved by Congress. We still have time to rectify and make adjustments on its provisions that are not fully aligned with the Garcia-Mandanas ruling. The LGUs have waited long enough. Now is the time to let them receive and truly benefit from their just share in national taxes. Mr. Speaker, distinguished members, thank you for your attention.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we recognize Honorable Mark Go of the Lone District of Baguio City for his interpellation. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Mark Go is recognized for his interpellation.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Majority Leader, will the sponsor of this afternoon be willing to answer some clarificatory questions? Mr. Speaker, our colleague from Bataan.
It would be an honor, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Our friend from Bataan. I would like to express, before I ask the questions, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to express my full support to the manifestation expressed by our good friend from Bataan, Congressman Joet Garcia. And I believe that all local governments, for that matter, are really interested in ensuring that they get the fair share of the national revenue as provided for under the Garcia-Mandanas ruling of the Supreme Court. I have one question related to the revenue now that is collected by the national government and the amount shared to the local governments. Would you tell us, our good friend, Honorable Garcia, how much now is the share, the total share of our local governments prior to this Garcia-Mandanas ruling, Honorable Garcia?
Mr. Speaker, prior to the Garcia-Mandanas ruling, the estimated internal revenue allotment was 848 billion for 2021. So comparing to after the ruling, it is now 1.083 trillion.
So it's this is about less than 40% increase because of the Garcia Mandanas ruling, Mr. Speaker.
That is
Is that
correct,
correct?
Mr. Speaker.
Yes. With the proposal of the Department of Budget and Management that they will include several items in the calculation of the internal revenue allotment that will be given to the local governments. Like, for example, they included as deductions from the national revenue, the 5% block grant to BARM, the Agriculture Competitiveness Enhancement Fund under Republic Act 9496, the Rice Competitive Enhancement Fund under Republic Act 11203, and the others, the Bureau of Fire Support Fund as provided for under 9514. How much now will be the calculated ERA that will be distributed among the different local governments under this Garcia Mandanas ruling?
Mr. Speaker, the deductions mentioned by Congressman Mark will now reduce the share of LGUs by 124 billion compared to the initial 1.083 trillion initially estimated by the DBM.
So this will be, Mr. Speaker, this will be a loss to the local government units who are expected to receive 1.033 trillion without even, with the original amount as provided for in the Mandanas ruling.
That is correct, Mr. Speaker, because the DOF deducted a total amount of 431 billion.
Okay. Now, with the mandate, if you may, of the Department of Budget that the different powers will now be devolved to the local government, how much is the expected cost to the local government once these items are devolved at one time to the different local government units? Mr. Speaker, our friend from Bataan.
Mr. Speaker, this is also the question that we'd like to ask the Department of Finance and the DBM. How much is the cost of these devolved functions currently shouldered by the national government? Because I think it was very evident, Mr. Speaker, that the amount they will now be giving the local government units as just share is definitely lower than the current amount or the current cost of providing such devolved services to our constituents, to our citizens.
So even if they will grant the total more than 400 billion pesos as a result of the Garcia Mandanas ruling, with the additional devolved powers, probably at the end of the day, it will be a negative additional revenue that will be given to the local governments, Mr. Speaker, our Honorable Joel Garcia.
That is correct, Mr. Speaker.
So it would appear that what you have fought with your father and Congressman Bandanas will become meaningless because of these additional devolved powers that will be given to the local government, which will cost more to the different local government units, Mr. Speaker.
That is correct, Mr. Speaker. The abrupt devolution of such functions which have been carried out by the national government the past several years, the past decades, and now being transferred or devolved to our local government units within a 3-year period would be the problem. That would be the problem because the local government units will not be able to absorb such functions with only the just share in national taxes that is being given by the national government.
In that sense, would you agree that if they will devolve within certain period of time so that they will not be burdened at one time, Mr. Speaker, will this be acceptable to you? Let's say make it 5 years or even more the devolution of these various powers, because it will be a big responsibility. It might not be carried out by the local governments because of the additional burden. But if they will schedule it, let's say for 5 years or 7 years, this might be tenable on the part of the local government units. Mr. Speaker, our friend, Honorable Garcia.
That is correct, Mr. Speaker. A gradual, practical, realistic implementation of the devolution would be best for our country.
In the meeting of the local government units with DBM, is this acceptable to them? And if not, what is the main reason why they would not agree with this suggestion, if you may, of devolving it for a period of time that is acceptable to the different local government units?
I heard, Mr. Speaker, during the meeting with our local government units that they did recommend at least 5 years transition period to a fully devolved regime. But this was not accepted by the national government, and they continued to push for the 3-year transition period embodied in Executive Order 138.
Okay, so if that is the case, you believe that this will be resolved by the president of the country, and your manifestation earlier suggests that we call the attention of the president, and the president will support such proposal of making it 5 years. After all, you know, it's not easy to immediately devolve powers. And I think 5 years is just, I would say, reasonable and probably acceptable, not only to the local government, but even to the other agencies of government, Mr. Speaker, Honorable Garcia.
That's correct, Mr. Speaker. As mentioned by our local government leagues, at least 5 years would give them enough time to adjust to this newly devolved functions. And it will also be aligned with what the President has been pushing for, which is federalism, which is empowering our local government units and further decentralizing or actually realistically decentralizing our government.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to go back to the inclusion of other deductions in the calculation of the era of our local government units. I have mentioned several items. What is the basis, the legal basis of this proposal of the DBM of including several items as deductions in the calculation of the national revenue? As I stated earlier, you know, the 5% block grant, the safeguard duties for the DA, the DTI, the Bureau of Fire Support Fund, even the PSC share from imported athletic equipment, Mr. Speaker, our sponsor, Congressman Joet.
Mr. Speaker, I believe there's no basis for those deductions that you mentioned. And in fact, this is the reason we're trying to get from the DBCC the resolution that's supposed to include or supposed to state how their calculations will be computed and how the just share will be computed for our local government units. But to our dismay, Mr. Speaker, this DBCC resolution has not been seen by any of our stakeholders, most especially our local government units. So as of now, we really don't have an idea how they are coming up with these numbers and deductions.
Yes, definitely. When I look at the decision of the Supreme Court in declaring the provisions of The second, I think it's important that the devolution should not be should be made 5 years as far as the powers and responsibilities of the different local governments. And number three, we should be sure that this should be effective this January, this January 2022. The full amount as mandated under the decision of the Supreme Court. And definitely it is there is no basis on the part of the Department of Budget to remove this in the not to implement the provision as provided for under the decision of the Supreme Court. Having said that, Mr. Speaker, I would like to express my full support to the position of our Honorable Garcia that the Department of Budget is to simply follow what is provided for in the decision of the Supreme Court on the Garcia-Mandanas ruling. Thank you very much, and good luck and congratulations on Joet Garcia.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we recognize Honorable Francisco Kiko B. Benitez of the 3rd District of Negros Occidental for his interpellation. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Kiko Benitez is recognized for his interpellation.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And if the Speaker would allow, I would like to ask the good gentleman from Bataan a few questions of clarification and then perhaps a short manifestation. Mr. Speaker.
It would be an honor, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. If I may, I was listening to many of the questions and interpellations of our good Congressman Mark Go from Baguio, and I would like to ask, because after all, the devolution of these functions and of these programs are not just about programs, right? These are also devolution having to do with actual people and personnel who fulfill this function. So would you know if Executive Order number 138, I believe is the right number, does it contain any provisions or any guidelines on what happens to the personnel of the national government who are at the moment fulfilling these functions, and what should happen to them should these programs and functions be devolved to the LGUs?
I am not fully aware, Mr. Speaker, on what will happen to the personnel currently performing these devolved functions that will be passed on to the local government units.
Thank you. My second question then is that at this point in time, I assume that the computation for what will be given in terms of revenues to the local government units, not in 2022, but in 2023, have already been computed by the DBM. Would you be aware, Mr. Speaker, Honorable Garcia, if the local government units have been informed of what they may expect, not in 2022, but in 2023?
I haven't been informed that the LGUs have been informed of this figure for their just share in the year 2023. All I know is they've been given this amount for their 2022 share in national taxes.
Thank you. Considering that the transition is meant to be in 3 years, and we are asking in support of Honorable Garcia for a minimum 5-year transition, I think these two fairly simple and straightforward questions have to do with the planning horizon of the devolution. The first is, what do we do with the actual people involved? The second is, what do we do with the horizon of expectation for planning to properly capacitate the LGUs who will receive these functions to make sure that they provide the proper services to our people in the act and process of devolution. So my last question, if I may, would the good gentleman from Bataan know if there are in fact provisions in the executive order that is the subject of today's privileged speech for equity across the diverse capacities of our LGUs, from first to fifth class cities and municipalities?
I believe, Mr. Speaker, they will be basing their support on the submissions of the devolution transition plans of various LGUs. I know that the national government is also preparing support for lower class local government units, maybe fourth to sixth class LGUs.
No problem.
And therefore, Mr. Speaker, if fourth to sixth class LGUs are provided certain types of support, will that be across the board for all the functions? In other words, there will be no devolution for fourth, fifth, and sixth class municipalities and cities.
I am not aware of any policy on that matter, but as I mentioned earlier, I suppose they will review the devolution transition plans and see how they would need to support or to assist other lower class local government units based on their submitted plans. If based on their plans, they're able to commit to perform such functions, I believe the national government will allow them to do so. But if they show in their plans that they are not ready to do so, then I believe the national government will try to assist them. But I believe, Mr. Speaker, Honorable Benitez, the question here is, did the LGUs really answer or submit the DTPs accurately, realistically, and did they really match this with the estimated revenues that they will be locally earning, at the same time getting from their just share in taxes? So I'm not sure if the development of the DTPs really included such calculations so that they be more concrete in knowing which devolved functions they'll be able to handle.
Thank you, Honorable Garcia. Mr. Speaker, I think I will end my interpellation with a short manifestation, and that is to say that given the lack of information on the ways in which this devolution will be implemented, and given the risks involved for our population in general and for our personnel in the national government agencies that execute and implement these services and these functions, I feel that the national government's balancing act to mandate local autonomy of LGUs with their requirement to provide equity for services and social protections in particular across the board, given the range of capacities of our LGUs, the range of priorities of local chief executives of each LGU, what the central government or the national government may have to do, aside from informing local government units of what their expected revenues might be as far in advance as possible for planning purposes. They may also need to quantify, as has already been asked by Congressman Go, how much will it cost in each specific area to devolve each of these functions? And I think that that level of granular detail needed to ensure proper implementation of these services rather than the loss of these services and programs to our general population, I think requires us all to support the motion of the Honorable Garcia from Bataan. Maraming salamat po, Mr. Speaker.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I now move to recognize the Honorable Ferdinand R. Gaite of Party List Bayan Muna for his interpellation. So move, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Ferdinand Gaite is recognized for his interpellation.
Maraming salamat, Mr. Speaker. Isang magandang hapon sa ating lahat ng mga kasapi ng Kongreso nito at gayon din sa ating mabutihing nagbigay ng pribilehiyong pananalita hinggil sa napakahalagang usapin, ang problema ng pagpapatupad ng Mandanas Garcia ruling ng inyong ama na sumalangit ang kanyang kaluluwa at gayon din doon sa epekto nito sa mga LGUs. Pahintulutan ba ng ating kagalagalang na nagbigay ng privilege speech na makapag-post ng ilang questions sa nabanggit na privilege speech?
Isang karangalan po, Mr. Speaker.
Salamat po. Kaisa po ninyo ako doon sa inyong panawagan na hiwalay yung sinasabi ng desisyon ng Korte Suprema sa usapin ng Mandanas Garcia ruling at dun sa ipinatutupad ngayon na devolution sa ilalim ng Executive Order 138. At sa matagal na panahon, dahil hindi to first time, this will be technically the devolution part 2. Because as you remember it right, when the local government code was implemented way back in 1991, 1992, under Republic Act 7160, ito na po yung first round dapat ng devolution. And I believe it should have ended there. But mamaya I will paliwanag ko bakit. But for now, during the budget deliberations, ito yung paulit-ulit na tinanong ko po, Mr. Speaker, Your Honor, yung ano na ba ang pag-aaral na ginawa ng mga nauukol na mga ahensya tulad ng DBM, DILG, at iba pa, hinggil sa kanilang assessment sa pagpapatupad ng local government code 20 years, tama ba? Sorry. 30 years ago kasi 1991 po yan napatupad. Supposedly kahit sa batas na ito dapat every 5 years may reviewing ginagawa, no? Pero ang gusto natin malaman, Mr. Speaker, Your Honor, kung ano na ba, kung natugunan ba nung batas yung layunin, yung mandate niya, no, na magkaroon ng decentralization, devolution, magkaroon ng improvement ng delivery ng services at the local level. Yung magkaroon ng democratic representation dahil may provision din ito, no, sa usapin ng pamamahalang lokal. At gayon din sa mga iba pang usapin na nabanggit rin yung kahalagahan nito sa lokal na pamamahala sa usapin ng para mabawasan o di kaya'y matanggal yung problema ng ating governance, no? Yung problema ng korupsyon. Aware po ba ang ating kagalang-galang na Congressman Garcia kung meron silang alam ng mga ganitong pag-aaral para mabigyan ng tugon yung inyong pananaw na itong devolution na itinutulak ay makakaganda ba? Makakabuti ba? O hindi sa ating mga local government units. At the same time, yung epekto naman nito sa mga national government agencies. Mr. Speaker, Your Honor.
Sang-ayon ako, Ginoong Speaker, dun sa issue o concern na nire-raise ni Ginoong Representative Gaite na ano nga ba nangyari itong nakaraang 30 taon sa ating sa devolution provision ng ating local government code. At siguro kung babalikan po natin yung mga unang taon ng implementasyon nito, meron pong ibang mga serbisyo na talaga pong nahirapan ang ating local government units. Kasama na po dito ang kalusugan, ang health. Naalala ko po nung panahon na yon, marami sa ating mga probinsya ay nabigatan sa pag-turnover sa kanila ng operation ng mga ospital. At ito po ay naka-apekto sa pagbibigay ng maayos na serbisyong pangkalusugan sa kanila pong mga kababayan. Kaya kung titignan ho natin, dahil po sa pangyayaring ito, maraming mga probinsya sa pamagitan ng kanila pong mga kinatawan ng mga mambabatas ay nakiusap sa Department of Health sa pamagitan ng legislation na ma-renationalize ang ilan po sa mga ospital na ito sapagkat talagang nahirapan and yung services talaga pong nag-suffer lalo na sa isang bagay katulad po ng kalusugan na hindi natin pwedeng basta pabayaan. Naniniwala din po ako, bukod naman sa kalusugan, meron din pong iba na naiayos or naipatupad ng ating mga LGUs ng mabuti. No? So, tingin ko po, Ginoong Speaker, Representative Gaite, kinakailangan po talaga ng mas maayos na pag-aaral nang sa ganon malaman natin kung paano talaga dapat ipatupad ito pong devolution. So 30 taon na nakalipas, ito pa rin yung pinag-uusapan natin. Ito po yung nakasaad sa ating local government code. Pero siguro sa ating naranasan itong nakaraang 30 taon, medyo mas ma-identify na natin o mapipili natin kung alin pong mga function, alin pong mga serbisyo ang talagang dapat nasa lokal na pamahalaan at alin po ang may iwan dapat sa national na pamahalaan. Sa katunayan, Ginoong Speaker, gusto ko lang po banggitin sa isa pong meeting with DBM and DOH, kasama po ang ating Speaker, Speaker Lord Alan Velasco, sinabi ng DOH na gusto po nila na ma-renationalize ang lahat po ng mga ospital dahil nakikita nila ito yung pinakamabisang paraan para po mabigyan ng tamang serbisyo sa kalusugan ang ating pong mga kababayan. Of course, DBM, especially given the Garcia Mandana's ruling, objected to this recommendation by the DOH.
Salamat po, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, pagalang-galang na Congressman Garcia. At tama po yung nabanggit nyo, no? Maraming hindi natin tinitignan na masama yung devolution dahil sa isang napaka-sentralisadong pamamahala na kung saan ang kalakhan ng serbisyo ay naasa sa pambansang pamahalaan, tama naman no, na magkaroon ng antas ng serbisyo na may kakayanan, yun ang I think operative word, no? May kakayanan na ibigay sa antas ng lokal na pamamahala. Pero tama po yung observation nyo, hindi talaga lahat. Tulad nung nabanggit nyo, very concretely, yung serbisyong pangkalusugan. Actually, may isa pa, yung pabahay. Bakit ko po bigyan ng diin itong dalawang aspetong ito? Kasi napakalaki ng resources na kailangan para ipatupad yung serbisyong pangkalusugan. At ikalawa, pati yung pabahay. No? Yung expenditure for such services will require a relatively large amount. Kung ikaw nga ay isang 6th-class municipality, na ang revenues mo lang ay kakarampot at marami nga sa ating mga LGUs na mababang income classification, about 90% of their budget come from the internal revenue allotment. It is good that the decision now favors our LGUs because as the Mandanas Garcia ruling indicates, provides, hindi na lamang yung WIS na kinokolekta ng BIR, yung income tax at others, ang i-share doon sa pool. No? Yung dating sinusubi ng national government na hindi sinasama sa pool na i-share doon sa collection ng tariffs and duties sa Bureau of Customs and other government agencies, ang sabi ng Korte Suprema, dapat lahat na. Kaya nga, even the name was changed from internal revenue allotment, I believe now they call it national tax allotment. Kaya mas lalaki. At based sa data na pinakita nga ng DBM at kanino po piniliwanag nyo, roughly about 27% ang ilalaki nung budget ng LGU, which is good. However, tama po yung point nyo. Yung budget, dito ako pupunta sa tanong na ito, no? Sa tingin nyo kahit noon ba, at you explained concretely, no, yung problema sa health, sapat ba o commensurate ba yung budget na kahit wala pa itong desisyon ng Supreme Court, sapat na ba noon yung budget para maipatupad yung devolved functions na binabanggit natin? Yung actually at that time in 1991, if I understand, there were only some agencies, some services or functions which were devolved: health, social work, agriculture, minor na lang iba, I think, no? DNR, I think, yung kanilang community forestry program and others. Pero sa tingin nyo ba noon, and even with this 27% increase, commensurate ba yung ilalaki ng budget nila doon sa ipinasa naman na devolved functions? At sabi nyo nga kanina, hindi. No? So, I believe last plenary session, we approved a measure na palakihin, no, yung instead of 60-40 in favor of the national government, ang pinopropose po ngayon ay 50-50. Sa tingin nyo ba, with those measures, kakayanin na ng local government yung implement yung fully devolved functions na ngayon, based sa listahan na nilabas ng DBM, doon sa kanilang circular implementing rules and regulations of EO 138, sa tingin nyo ba, kakayanin na ng local government na pasanin ang bagong mga programs and functions na dati ay inaatang sa national government? Mr. Speaker, Mr. Sponsor.
Malaki po yung matutulong ng kasalukuyang increase in just share. Malaki rin po matutulong kapag naaprubahan yung ating kakapasalamang na panukala para iakyat pa sa 50-50 ang share dito ho sa national taxes. Pero ako po naniniwala hindi po rin po ito sasapat. Kasi kung titignan po natin yung 40% ngayon ng just share is only around 30% increase in national tax allotment. Yung 30% increase na yun, mabibilang lang rin po natin, no? Yung mga programa, mga proyekto na pwede po nating paggastusan nito pong dagdag na 30%. So definitely, Mr. Speaker, this will not suffice. That's why I mentioned also earlier that what we need is, aside from accurately giving the just share in national taxes of local government units, that the national government continues to support, to fund, to assist our local government units in other services that they need. No, hindi po pwede na nandyan na po yung Supreme Court ruling, nandyan na po yung just share ninyo, at ngayon, kung ano yung nakalagay sa local government code, kayo nang bahalang gumasto sa lahat na yan sapagkat binigay na namin yung just share. Hindi ho kakayanin ng ating local government units, kinakailangan pa rin yung patuloy na suporta mula po sa ating national government agencies.
Salamat po sa napakalinaw na pagpapaliwanag nyo. No? Natama, no? Marami talagang limitasyon. Hindi sa daigdig ng local governments, hindi talaga patas, no? May mga mayayaman na LGU, may mahirap na LGU. Yan ang katotohanan, no? At hangga't hindi nagkakaroon ng masinop na development program na ang ating mga local government units ay, sabi nyo, ang ganda yung term, just share, no? Ng kanilang ng buwis, ng kabuang buwis sa kanilang pangangailangan sa kanilang mga partikular na lokal na pamahalaan, hindi pwedeng one size fits all, no? Talagang kailangan may partikularidad, no? By the way, not all quote-unquote rich LGUs are problem-free. Marami sa kanila hindi rin sumapat yung kanilang revenues para ma-sustain ang kanilang operations. No? I know some cities here in Metro Manila who found that with difficulty, no? Na because of yung problem regarding their revenues and resources. Last two questions na lang po, kagaling-galing na Joet Garcia. Una po, ang isang concern po, dahil ako po tulad na banggit, ako dating government employee, at noong 1991, nasagupan na namin yung issue na ito. At ang first ang major concern namin ay yung epekto ng devolution, at tama yung sinabi ni Congressman Benitez, yung epekto sa mga empleyado. Kasi sila yung nag-suffer. As we've seen in 1991, actually 1992 na, kasi may period pa ng paglabas ng circular, but the implementation of the Local Government Code of 1991 impacted on government workers. At tama yung binanggit ko kanina, sa health, nagka-problema yan. Kasi yung dinevolve, o ang term nila secondment, no? Nilipat sila sa LGU, hindi automatically same yung conditions o working conditions sila. Alam naman natin sa batas mismo ng pasahod, mas mababa ang pasahod ng mga LGU, lalo na yung mga mabababang income classification. Nagkaroon rin ng mga, dahil ang tingin, outsider kayo eh. Kayo dating taga Department of Health, ngayon dito kayo. So merong mga ganong minor naman na alitan yon. But still, tama po, because of the problem with the capability of the local government na i-absorb itong mga kawani, nagkaroon ng mga problema sa implementation. There was an instance, I heard this before, hindi nila ma-accept yung mga doctors. The reason being, pag in-accept namin yung doktor na yan, yung sweldo ng doktor, mas mataas pa kaysa kay mayor. So, it became nagkaroon ng malaking dilemma on the part of local government units because of their capacity, no? Yung absorptive capacity na kunin nila itong mga empleyadong ito with, of course, the noble objective of delivering the services to the people. Kaya po, tinanong ko po ito during the budget deliberations. Tinanong ko sila, sabi nila nung una, ano yung DBM eh, tinanong ko, has there been any study on the impact of the implementation of the local government? Oh, there's a dearth of study. Oh, good, sabi ko. So actually, I saw some from the UP, merong mga studies na ginawa. Pero tanong ko, specific to the impact on employees. Tapos sabi niya, wala. Wala. So, hindi ba di-deliver yung sinasabing services kung walang kakibat na yung magbibigay ng service ay hindi mo naman i-ensure na mailalagay from the national government to the local government. And even up to now, the options given to the employees are not ironclad. Bakit? Supposedly, they're given 3 options. Actually, just this recently, last September, there's a 4th option. First option is to find another position within the department where there is a vacancy. So, option 1. So, kunyari, Department of Department of Human Settlements and Urban Development. So, maraming attached agencies. Kung na-devolve yung function mo, hanap ka ng position within that department. Kung meron, yes. Kung wala. Okay. Option 2. Ito naman, within the executive branch. So, hanap ka na bang positions na vacants daw sa Department of Agriculture, Agrarian Reform, wherever. No? Kung meron, well and good. Paano kung wala? Wala. Yung third option, ito yung sinasabi. You may opt to be separated from the service, and kung gusto mong ma-absorb doon sa LGU, it's not, it's not ironclad. Kung gusto mo lang, pwede naman, kung tatanggapin ka ng LGU. At you have to accept the position as entry level. Ibig sabihin, kahit, kunyari, salary grade 1 ka na, step increment 8, yan yung pinakamataas na step increment, entry level, balik ka na naman sa step 1. At kung may nasama pa na ikaw ay napunta sa isang local government unit na 6th-class municipality, you only get 65% of your salary as compared to what you were getting when you were in that national government agency. So anong tingin niyo po ba? Fair ho ba itong policy na ito, na itong options na ito? By the way, yun pala, yung fourth option, ito yung kalalabas lang, September lumabas, doon sa circular ng DBM-DILG, joint circular nila. The fourth option is CTI ka. What does CTI mean? It means coterminous with the incumbent. Ang ibig sabihin nun, you can remain in that agency, that parent agency where you came from, but you will now be coterminous with the position that you're holding. Meaning, kung ayoko pang maalis, ayokong lumipat sa ibang ahensya, pwede ako manatili dito, pero once you retire, resign, remove for cause, then that item is abolished. It will not be filled up anymore. But still, the point is, sa agency, hindi rin maganda yan kasi nauubusan, magkakaroon ng attrition ng empleyado. Eventually, mawawala din. Pero tingin nyo ba, fair yung options na pinoprovide sa mga employees who are expected to provide the service within the purview of that concept of devolution? Na ang sabi nga, ito nga yung konsepto ng devolution, ay yung paglipat ng mga serbisyo sa nauukulang mga ahensya lokal. Kaya po, yung isang concern ng kinatawang ito, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Sponsor, ano ang tingin nyo na tamang paraan para maprotektahan rin yung ating mga manggagawa na apektado ng programang devolution?
Mr. Speaker, doon ho sa inyong katanungan, tingin ko po hindi talaga fair, lalo na doon sa mga maaring maapektuhan, mawalan ng trabaho, syempre bumaba lalo yung kanilang salary grade or mapunta sa isang posisyon na hindi naman nila kabisado para lang ma-accommodate yung kanila pong item or trabaho. Mahirap po talaga itong katanungan, kaya nga paulit-ulit natin binanggit kanina sa ating privilege speech na hindi ho talaga po pwede yung abrupt implementation of the devolution. Given devolution has been there since 1991, pero dahil nga hindi nga natin napatupad to ng maayos, hindi dahil nandyan yung Garcia Mandanas ruling, ibig sabihin pa pwede na natin itong ipatupad sa loob ng 3 taon. Siguro ang kasagutan lang po, Mr. Speaker, ay kinakailangan talagang mas malalim pang pag-aaral, lalo na sa iba't ibang mga critical services katulad nga ng kalusugan na sa ngayon, dahil sa hinaharap natin pandemya, hindi ho pwedeng mapabayaan, bagkus dapat nga lalo pa nating palakasin. Dito ho papasok yung hopefully yung kinalabasan ng mga sinubmit na mga devolution transition plan. Ang problema lang nga po dito sa mga DTP, hindi ko po alam kung gaano ka-exhaustive, gaano po kalalim yung ginawa po nilang pagpaplano. Kinonsider ba nila yung pag-absorb ng mga empleyado ng mga functions na maaring ma-devolve sa kanila? So siguro ito po yung isang katanungan talaga na maaari natin ibalik muli sa DBM, sa DILG, sa DOF dahil imbis nga na makatulong, ito pong matagal nang inaantay na just share in national taxes ng mga LGUs, lalo pa ho yatang makakasama dahil mapipigilan yung pagpapatupad ng mga kasalukuyang serbisyo na ibinibigay ng national government dahil hindi po ito kakayanin ng ating local government units, at idadagdag pa nga natin yung maaring ma-displace, ma-underemploy, mawala ng trabaho nating mga kababayan.
Salamat po, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Congressman Joet. Totoo po yun, at kaya nga po as early as March of this year, kami po ay nagtulak na dapat magkaroon ng masusing pag-aaral hinggil sa epekto nitong ipatutupad nga na Executive Order 138, na ako po ay in agreement sa ating kagalang-galang na sponsor na iba ang devolution, iba yung decision ng Korte Suprema. Kami po ay kaisa dun sa pananaw na yon. At ikalawa, gusto ko lang inform, maraming agencies, about 26 agencies ang affected. So maraming empleyado ang tatamaan. At nakakabahala dahil ang sabi nga dito, ang definition nga ng devolution, refers to the act by which the national government confers power and authority upon the various local government units to perform specific functions and responsibilities ayon sa RA 7160. Pero gusto ko rin inform kayo, during the budget deliberations, I was able to talk to many government employees who will be affected, DTI, Department of Human Settlements and Urban Development, among others. At sila rin ay tumututol. Dahil yung sinasabi niyo pong DTP, Devolution Transition Plan, nung nakita nila, example sa DTI, about 1,200 employees will be affected. At ang nakakabahala niyan, ito yung mga job orders at contract of service. Kasi nga po wala silang security of tenure. So talagang, kumbaga all mine to give, pwede silang ibigay. Pero syempre, ang maganda lang, mismo ang kawani at mismo yung management, ay syempre, nag-invest na sila sa mga empleyadong ito eh. Ito yung mga business counselor, sabi nila, na tumutulong sa services sa mga LGUs. Hindi sila kumpiyansa na kapag ito'y ma-devolve, matutuloy yung programa nila. Because as we know, kanya-kanyang priorities ang LGU. We cannot impose or dictate upon them. But it is a problem of the national government in how the national government programs will be implemented at the local level. Kaya po, yun yung concern nila. Kaya po, panguli na lang, meron pong provision dito sa local government code. At gusto ko po marinig lang kung ano ang tingin nyo. Yung sinasabi pong devolution ay dapat naganap yan noong 1991 or 1992. To quote, ang sabi po dito, section 17, ang sabi po that national agencies or offices concerned shall devolve to the local government units the responsibility for the provision of basic services and facilities enumerated within this section within 6 months after the effectivity of the code. So 1991 pa ho ito naging effective. Tama po? Even, lagyan mo na ng counting allowance for the implementing rules and regulations. So ang tingin nyo ba, this is 30 years ago. So do you think ito po ba ay applicable pa? Or do you think, Mr. Chair, Mr. Sponsor, Mr. Speaker, kung ito ay nangangailangan as presented by Congressman Edsel Lagman, na kailangan ng bagong batas to be implemented. Not by mere executive order, as what is happening now, but a law which will guide the proper principles in the implementation of the devolution. Kaya po, kahit sa implementing rules and regulations, sinabi within 6 months. But that ship has sailed. Matagal na po yung naganap. Ngayon, lumalabas, pinipilit ngayon na may devolution part 2. So anong tingin po ng ating kagalang-galang na Congressman Joel Garcia dito sa prinsipyo na ito ay dapat dumaan sa legislation para ma-cure itong problema na yung period of devolution has already expired. Mr. Speaker.
Tingin ko po, Ginoong Speaker, dahil nga sa dami ng mga issues na nakikita po natin at sa dami po ng maapektuhan ng mga serbisyo at ng ating pong mga kababayan, mas maganda po kung tayo ay makakagawa ng isang panukalang batas na talaga pong masusing pag-aaralan ang iba't ibang bahagi nito pong devolution at mabibigyan natin ng karapat-dapat na polisiya, enabling law para po sa tamang pagpapatupad, realistic, practical na pagpapatupad ng devolution sa mga darating pong taon. Kung babalikan po natin muli kung bakit po medyo naipit ito pong devolution, ito pong nakaraang 30 taon. Dahil po kung titingnan lang ho natin yung Department of Health, yung Department of Social Services, na alam naman natin devolved function, malinaw na devolved function po yan. Nabanggit ko nga kanina, bilyon pa rin, daang bilyon po ang budget na binibigay po sa DOH at saka sa DSWD. So talagang lumipas yung panahon na pwede po nating i-capacitate, maturuan, mag-guide yung ating mga local government units dahil napaka-centralized ng resources, centralized po yung pondo para po sa health and social services. Kaya ho hindi natin naturuan, hindi natin natulungan yung ating mga LGUs para i-assume ito pong devolved functions na ito. At sana sa gagawin nga po nating panukala at hopefully maging batas, ito po ay maging malinaw kung paano po ibababa pa yung resources para talaga po magampanan ng ating local government units yung devolved functions ayon sa ating local government code.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you sa ating kagalang-galang na kinatawan ng Joel Garcia at kami kaisa sa panawagan nyo na dapat talagang aralin ng maigi ang epekto ng devolusyon at kung mamarapatin ay pansamantalang huwag muna ipatupad ito hanggat hindi ito comprehensively naaaral. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Before we proceed, the chair will entertain a motion to extend the privilege hour. Majority Leader?
Mr. Speaker, I move that we extend the privilege hour. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection? The chair hears none. Motion is approved. Majority Leader?
Mr. Speaker, I move that we refer the privileged speech of Honorable Garcia and all the interpollators to the Committee on Rules for its appropriate action. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection? The chair hears none. Motion is approved. And the privileged speech of the Honorable Garcia, along with the interpellations of the Honorable Gaite, the Honorable Benitez, and the Honorable Go, are all hereby referred to the Committee on Rules. Majority Leader?
Mr. Speaker, I move that we recognize Honorable Stella Luz Kimbo of the 2nd District of Marikina City for her interpellation. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
Is it a privileged speech? The Honorable Stella Luz A. Kimbo is here of the 2nd District of Marikina is hereby recognized for her privileged speech.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, honorable members of this august body, good afternoon. I speak before you today as a teacher. I am certain that all of you, my dear colleagues in the House of Representatives, are aware of the current plight of the teachers. Hirap talaga ang teachers sa kawalan ng gadgets, di sapat na internet connection, at napakahaba at di tiyak na work hours dahil sa hybrid classes. Marami sa teachers ay ginagabi dahil sa online consultations ng students sa iba't ibang platforms. Minsan ay kailangan pang mag-home visits para asikasuhin ang students na hirap sa klase. Kaya tiwala po akong maiintindihan niyo ako at aaksyonan ang kanilang hirap ngayong may pandemya. Mr. Speaker, the Philippines is among the last countries in the world to resume face-to-face classes. In other ASEAN countries like Vietnam, Thailand, Singapore, Indonesia, and Malaysia, schools began to conduct limited face-to-face classes as early as mid-2020. In the Philippines, on the other hand, primary schools began to reopen only last November, or about 20 months after the onset of the pandemic. According to the DepEd, 120 schools participated in the pilot run of face-to-face classes for kinder to grade 3 in November, and another 165 joined last week. Dito po sa NCR, 28 public schools ang kasalukuyang may limited face-to-face classes. Sa ngayon, about 7,000 students pa lang ang sakop ng face-to-face classes. Kakapiranggot ito kumpara sa lagpas 27 million enrolled students sa ngayon. Pero ayon din po sa DepEd, optimistic ang kagawaran na mag-e-expand ang face-to-face classes by January of next year. Madam Speaker, face-to-face classroom instruction is superior to distance learning. Mas madali pong makakapagturo ang teachers kung nakikita nila ang kanilang mga estudyante ng personal. It is likewise easier for learners to understand their lessons in person because they could concentrate more when in the classroom, a venue which is specifically designed for teaching and learning. In the classroom, they can easily build relationships with peers and problem solve together and discuss their lessons among themselves. Studies have shown better outcomes for face-to-face classes compared to remote learning. According to an ADB study, distance learning over a 12-month period causes a learning penalty of 3 to 7 months depending on the quality of remote instruction. Ibig sabihin po, yung inaral sa loob ng isang taon sa distance learning ay maaaring katumbas lamang ng 5 hanggang 9 na buwan ng face-to-face classes. Furthermore, another ADB study said that reduced education results in students having lower productivity in the workforce when they become adults. The study shows that every year without face-to-face classes may lead to a permanent reduction in future wages amounting to as much as 9.7%. Malaki ang magiging epekto nito sa ekonomiya. Sa katunayan po, ngayon pa lamang ay 1.9 trillion pesos o 10% ng GDP ang nawala dahil sa pagtigil ng face-to-face classes for the school year 2020-2021. Kaya malinaw po na kailangan ibalik ang ligtas na face-to-face classes. But as we do so, I ask the government to pay special attention to the frontliners of the education sector, ang ating mga guro. Kailangan po natin alagaan ang mga teachers dahil nakasalalay po sa kanila ang tagumpay ng pagbabalik paaralan ng kanilang or ng ating mga anak. Teachers have the responsibility to develop a workforce that shall bring us out of our economic hardships today. Ano-ano po ba ang mga problema ng teachers ngayon, Madam Speaker? First, they are the only worker group whose job is to physically work with non-vaccinated individuals. Citing data as of October 2021, DepEd said that only 0.14% of minors aged 12 to 17 have been fully vaccinated. Pagdating naman sa teachers and non-teaching personnel, 50.33% na ang bakunado. Malamang po ay mas mataas na ito ngayon. Ang problema po, malaking porsyento po ng mga bata ay hindi pa bakunado. The youngest age for COVID vaccination in the Philippines is 12 years old. Last month, we opened face-to-face classes for senior high school students as well as kindergarten to grade 3 pupils. They are just about 5 to 9 years old, kaya siguradong wala pa silang bakuna. So, kahit na bakunado na po ang mga guro, at risk pa rin sila dahil wala pang bakuna ang mga estudyante nila. Another problem arises when the teacher gets sick because of their line of work. We all know COVID-19 vaccines do not make us fully immune from the virus, especially now that it is mutating. Teachers doing face-to-face classes are at a higher risk of contracting COVID-19. However, teachers report that some schools require them to sign a waiver. At ayon sa waiver, walang pananagutan ng DepEd kung magkakasakit or magkaroon man ng COVID ang teacher. Kaya kung magka-COVID because of work ang isang guro, mag-isa na lang niya po itong problemahin. And for the record, in a Committee on Basic Education and Culture hearing held last week, the DepEd said that the waiver requirement is not a national policy. And so I therefore urge the department to advise their regional offices and schools divisions to refrain from requiring our teachers to sign such waivers for the conduct of face-to-face classes. Mas gaganahan po lalong magtrabaho ang ating masisipag na teachers kung ramdam nila na nasa likod nila ang gobyerno, anuman ang mangyari. So hence, this afternoon, after I deliver this privileged speech, I will file a House resolution to urge the Department of Health to prioritize teachers for booster shots. This will add an extra layer of protection for teachers as they physically report in schools and teach face-to-face classes. Nagawa na po nating kumbinsihin ang executive this year na itaas ang priority ng teachers sa vaccination. For sure, they will listen to our pleas to prioritize teachers for booster doses as well. The resolution also urges the Department of Education to provide a COVID-19 special risk allowance to teachers conducting face-to-face classes. Malinaw po na may tsansa na magka-COVID ang teacher in their line of work, lalo na kung nagtuturo physically. It is reasonable for the teachers to be given special risk allowances to allow them to spend more for protective equipment and to compensate them should they get sick in the line of duty. Madam Speaker, wala pa mang pandemya, marami ng hamon ang hinaharap ng mga teachers. Mas pinatindi ng pandemya ang kanilang mga problema. Because they are extremely vital for the development of our workforce, we must ensure that they are well compensated and adequately protected while performing their duties. Sa pag-ahon po natin sa pandemya, hindi po dapat maiwan ang mga teachers dahil hinuhubog nila ang mga Pilipinong magpapatatag at magpapaunlad ng ating bayan. Thank you, Madam Speaker, honorable members of this chamber, at binabati ko na rin po ang mga teachers sa Marikina City na nag-celebrate ng Teachers Day sa Marikina noong December 10. Salamat po muli, Madam Speaker.
Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move that we refer the privileged speech of the Honorable Stella Luz Kimbo of the 2nd District of Marikina City to the Committee on Rules for its appropriate action. I so move, Madam Speaker.
Is there any objections? Hearing none, the motion is approved. Majority Leader. Madam Speaker, I move to recognize the Honorable Franz L. Castro of Party List ACT Teachers for her privileged speech. So move, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Franz Castro is recognized.
Maraming salamat, Madam Speaker. Magandang hapon po sa ating mga kababayan at sa kapwa ko mga kinatawan. Halos mag-iisang buwan na ang lumipas nung nagsimula ang pilot run ng limited face-to-face classes ng elementary at secondary schools sa iba't ibang probinsya at syudad. So merong naunang 100 schools sa public school at merong 20 na mga eskwelahan sa mga pribadong eskwelahan. Noong November 15. Sa NCR naman, natapos na ang isang linggo ng limited face-to-face ng halos 28 public schools. Habang sa higher education institutions, nagkaroon na rin ng pilot run ang phase 1 ng limited in-person classes sa mga lugar na nasa alert level 2. Base sa memo ng Commission on Higher Education, isa sa mga kondisyon upang makabalik paaralan ang mga nasa higher education institutions ay dapat fully vaccinated ang kanilang mga teaching and non-teaching personnel, pati na rin ang mga estudyanteng papasok sa klase. Habang ang Department of Education naman ay walang klarong polisiya sa no vaccine, no work, no salary o no face-to-face classes. Ngunit iba ang nangyayari sa antas sa dibisyon ng paaralan. Nakarating sa aming tanggapan na may mga dibisyon o paaralan na naglabas ng policy o ng memo na dapat bakunado ang mga guro na magre-report sa mga paaralan at kung hindi naman ito bakunado ay kailangan nilang magpakita ng negative RT-PCR test result na siya mismo ang gagastos. Itong mga pulisiya na ito patungkol sa mga hindi bakunadong guro at mga estudyante na lalahok sa limited face-to-face classes ay discriminatory at lumalabag sa kanilang karapatan na makapag-access sa edukasyon at ang kanilang constitutional freedom of choice for every Filipino. Lumalabag din ito sa religious freedom ng isang individual kung ang kanyang relihiyon ay hindi sila pwedeng mabakunahan o masalinan ng dugo. Dapat din bigyang pansin ang medical reasons ng ibang mga individual o mga cultural beliefs, lalo na ng ating mga indigenous people patungkol sa pagbabakuna. Maliban sa mga discriminatory policies, mayroon pang mga waiver na pinapipirmahan sa mga magulang at guro na lalahok sa face-to-face classes sa basic education. Nakasaad sa waiver na ito, Madam Speaker, na walang pananagutan ang DepEd kung sakaling magka-COVID-19 ang mga guro o ang estudyante. Ayon naman sa DepEd, wala silang nilalabas na ganitong official policy. Patungkol dito, ngunit sa tingin namin ay hindi naman ito gagawin o ilalabas ng region, division o school kung walang utos mula sa central office. Hindi dapat pilitin ang mga guro o estudyante na magpabakuna lalo na kung mayroon silang dahilan. At lalong hindi dapat ipasa sa kanila ang paggasto sa testing para mapatunayan na sila ay fit to work o pwedeng lumahok sa face-to-face classes. Parte po ng aming panawagan ang safe reopening of schools, ang libre at lingguhang antigen testing para ma-screen ang lahat ng mga lalahok sa face-to-face classes, retrofitting ng mga classroom para sa mas maayos na ventilasyon at pagtiyak ng mga kailangang pasilidad, at medical fund para sa libreng pagpapagamot ng mahahawa sa COVID, maging ito man ay teachers, students, at education personnel. Marami pa rin ang walang akses sa bakuna, lalo na sa mga probinsya. Ang pagpapatupad ng ganitong klase ng polisiya ay lalong maglilimita ng akses ng mga mag-aaral, lalo na sa mga lugar na mas mahirap ang access sa internet at iba pang mga resources para sa kanilang pag-aaral, at pahirap din sa mga guro nakakarampot ang sahod at maaari pang mawala. Dapat siguruhin ng DepEd at ng CHED na itong mga paaralan ay dapat may sapat na pasilidad para sa proper ventilation at sumusunod sa minimum health standards. Dapat din magkaroon ng malawakang information drive tungkol sa bakuna upang mawala ang pangamba o takot ng mga guro, estudyante at mga magulang kaysa ma-discriminate sila sa face-to-face classes. Face-to-face classes are still the ideal to ensure that the students are really learning what the teachers are teaching them. In the 2 years of blended distance learning, we do not need more policies that limit our youth from accessing quality education and discriminate teachers. Kaya, Madam Speaker, panawagan po natin na sana po ay habang tayo po ay nag-encourage na magpabakuna ang ating mga guro, ang ating mga estudyante na pwede na, at ang ating mga mamamayan, kailangan din po na maigalang yung kanilang mga karapatan. Sa ilong lang po, Madam Speaker, at muli, magandang hapon po sa ating lahat.
Majority Leader. Madam Speaker, I move to refer the speech of the Honorable Franz L. Castro to the Committee on Rules for its appropriate action. So move, Madam Speaker.
Is there any objection? The chair hears none. The motion is approved. Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move to terminate the privilege hour.
Is
So
there
moved,
any
Madam
objection? The chair hears none. Privilege hour is now terminated. Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move for the consideration on third reading House Bills number 10516, 10517, 10532, 10533 under the cluster ecotourism sites. And for this purpose, may I request that the Secretary General be directed to read the title of the bills and thereafter to call the roll for nominal voting. So move, Madam Speaker.
The Secretary General is directed to read the title of the measures and call the roll for nominal voting.
House Bill number 10516, an act declaring the Managong Waterfalls located in Barangay Padiay, Municipality of Sibagat, Province of Agusan del Sur, an ecotourism site and appropriating funds therefore. House Bill number 10517, an act declaring the Tugonan Waterfalls located in Barangay San Lorenzo, Municipality of Prosperidad, Province of Agusan del Sur, an ecotourism site and appropriating funds therefore. House Bill number 10532, an act declaring the Paraiso T. Caribquib located in Sitio Daramwangan, Barangay Karibkib, Municipality of Bana, Province of Ilocos Norte, an ecotourism destination and providing for its development and appropriating funds therefore. House Bill number 10533, an act declaring the Malasi 3 Park and Wildlife Sanctuary located in Barangay San Antonio, Municipality of Cabagan, Province of Isabela, an ecotourism zone and appropriating funds therefore. Roll call of members in consideration on third reading of House Bill numbers 10516, 10517, 10532, and 10533. Abante, Abaya, Villanosa, Abu, Abeg, Saldivar, Abunda, Acosta, Costa Alba, Adyong, Advincula, Agabas, Agaraw, Agripay, Aguinaldo, Albano, Almario, Alonte, Alvarez Franz, Alvarez Genaro, Alvarez Pantaleon, Amante Matba, Matong, Angara, Aragones, Arbison, Arenas, Arroyo, Atienza, Mentado, Babasa, Bagatsing, Balindong, Banyas, Nograles, Barba, Barbers, Baronda, Barsaga, Bascug, Bautista, Bautista, Bandigan, Belmonte, Benitez, Bernos, Biazon, Billones, Biron, Bolilla, Bondok, Bordado, Bravo, Brosas, Bulot, Bustos, Kabatbat, Kabuchan, Cabredo, Cagas, Calderon, Calixto, Caminero, Campos, Canama, Kawagdan, Cardema, Cari, Castelo, Castro Franz, Castro Fredenil, Cayetano Alan, Cayetano Laarni, Celeste Chato, Chipeco Chungalao, Co Angelica, Co Elizaldi, Co Juanco, Colliantes, Crisologo, Cua Quaresma, Cueva Culyamat, Dagook, Dalipe, Dalog, Daza, De Jesus de Venecia, Defensor Lawrence, Defensor Michael, De Los Santos, De Loso Montalia, De Maporo Abdullah, De Maporo Khalid, Duavit, Duhali, Duterte, Di Faustino Ino, Di Faustino Michael, Di Ian, Ebka, Secleo, Elago, Enverga, Erice, Erigel, Ermita Buhay, Escudero, Espina, Espino, Estrella, Fariñas Ria, Fariñas Rudis, Fernandez, Fernando, Ferrer Juliet, Ferrer Luis, Flores, Fortun, Fortuno, Frasco, Fuentebella, Gaite, Garbin, Garcia, Jose Enrique, Garcia, Bablujan, Garcia Vincent, Garin Janet, Garin Sharon, Gasataya, Gatchalian, Gato, Heron, Goed, Gomark, Gonzaga, Gonzales Aurelio, Gonzales Neptali, Gonzales Sandro, Goriseta, Gico, Gullas, Guya, Haresco, Hataman, Hernandez, Herreradi, Hofer, Halosos, Javier, Jimenez, Ko Elisa, Ko Wilton, Konghun, Labad-Labad, Lacson, Lacson Noel, Lagman, Lagon, Lara, Lazatin, Liachon, Ligarda, Limlim, Kaichong, Lopez, Loyola, Lusotan, Makapagal Arroyo, Maceda, Madrona, Malapitan, Mangawang, Mangudadatu, Marcoleta, Mariano Hernandez, Marino, Marquez, Martinez, Matba, Matugas, Mendoza, Momo, Natividad Nagaño, Nava, Nieto, Noel, Nograles, Jericho, Nograles, Fidel, Nolasco, Nunez Malanaon, Uaminal, Olivares, Ong Jose, Ong Roni, Ordanes, Ortega, Juano Dizon, Pacquiao Alberto, Pacquiao Rogelio, Padiernos, Paduano, Palma, Pancho, Panotes, Peña, Pichay, Pimentel, Pineda, Plaza, Puno, Kimbo, Radasa, Remirasato, Remulla, Revilla, Reyes, Rivera, Robes, Rodriguez, Roman, Romero, Romualdez Martin, Romualdez Yeda, Romualdo, Romulo, Roque, Sakdalan, sa Garbaria, sa Kaluran, Salceda, sa Limbangon, Salo, Salvador Tambunting, Sanchez, Sangkopan, Santos Recto, Sarmiento, Saulug, Saveliano, Xiao, Silverio, Singson, Singson Mihan, Sinsuwat, Swansing Estrelita, Swansing Horacio, Suarez Aleta, Suarez David, Suntay, Si Alvarado, Taduran, Talyado, Tan Alaisa, Tan Angelina, Tan Samir, Tan Sharian, Tan Sherny, Tejada, Teves Arnolfo, Teves Jose, Tiangco, Talentino, Torres Gomez, Tulfo, Tupas, Chotorti, Alan, T. Diego, Umali Alfonso, Umali Victoria, Unabia, Ungab, Uy Juliet, Uy Rolando Valeriano, Valmayor Vargas, Vargas Alfonso, Velasco, Veloso, Vergara, Villa, Villafuerte, Villanueva Eduardo, Villanueva Noel, Villar, Villaraza Suarez, Villarica, Violago, Yap Eric, Yap Victor Yu, Zamora Ronaldo, Zamora Waikorat, Zarate Zubiri. Second call for consideration on third reading of House Bill numbers 10516, 10517, 10532, and 10533. Abante, Abaya, Villanosa, Abunda, Acosta, Agaraw, Aguinaldo, Alvarez, Pantaleon, Amatong, Arenas, Arroyo, Mentado, Bagatsing, Bernos, Billones, Biron, Bulot, Canama, Kawagdan, Castelo, Chungalao, Co Angelica, Co Elizaldi, Co Juanco, Colliantes, Dalipe, Dazad, De Venecia, Defensor Michael, De Los Santos, De Loso Montalia, Duavit, Di Faustino Ino, Ecleo, Enverga, Emrito Buhain, Espino, Fariñas Rudis, Fernandez, Fernando Flores, Fortun Garbin, Garcia Vincent, Garin Sharon, Gasataya, Goed, Gonzaga, Gonzales Sandro, Gico, Gullas, Guya, Haresco, Hataman, Hernandez, Halosos, Co Wilton, Konghun, Lagman, Liachon, Makapagal Arroyo, Malapitan, Mangudadato, Marcoleta, Marino, Matba, Mendoza, Momo, Nograles, Juan, Nolasco, Nunez Malanaon, Uaminal, Ortega, Pacquiao Alberto, Panotes, Pichay, Pimentel, Rivera, Roman, Romero, Romualdo, Sangkopan, Saulug, Silverio, Singson, Suarez Aleta, Suarez David, C. Alvarado, Talyado, Tansamir, Tansherney, Tejada, Teves Arnolfo, Tiangco, Torres Gomez, Tupas, T. Alan, Unabia, Vargas Alfonso, Veloso, Villanueva Eduardo, Villanueva Noel, Villaraza Suarez, Villarica, Zamora Waycorat, Zubiri.
With 185 members voting in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and 6 abstentions, House Bill numbers 10516, 10517, 10532, and 10533 are hereby approved on third and final reading. Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move for the consideration on third reading, House Bill number 10522, and for this purpose, my request that the Secretary General be directed to read the title of the measure and thereafter to call the roll for nominal voting. I so move, Madam Speaker.
The Secretary General is directed to read the title of the bill and call the roll for nominal voting.
House Bill number 10522, an act mandating construction of the Panaon Island Circumferential Road in southern Leyte and appropriating funds therefor. Roll call of members for consideration on third reading of House Bill number 10522. Honorable Representatives, Abante, Abaya, Abellanosa, Abu, Abeg Saldivar, Abunda, Acosta, Acosta Alba, Adyong, Advincola, Agabas, Agaraw, Aglipay, Aguinaldo, Albano, Almario, Alonte, Alvarez France, Alvarez Senaro, Alvarez Pantaleon, Amante Matba, Amatong, Angara, Aragones, Arbison, Arenas, Arroyo, Atienza, Aumentado, Babasa, Bagatsing, Balindong, Banyas, Nograles, Barba, Barbers, Baronda, Barzaga, Bascug, Bautista, Bautista Bandigan, Belmonte, Benitez, Bernos, Biazon, Billones, Biron, Bolilla, Bondoc, Bordado, Bravo, Brosas, Bulut, Bustos, Kabatbat, Kabuchan, Cabredo, Cagas, Calderon, Calixto, Caminero, Campos, Canama, Kawabdan, Cardema, Cari, Castelo, Castro, France, Castro, Fredinil, Cayetano, Alan, Cayetano, Laarni, Celeste, Chato, Chipeco, Chungalao, Co, Angelica, Co, Elizalde, Co, Juanco, Colliantes, Crisologo, Cua, Quaresma, Cueva, Culyamat, Dagook, Dalipe, Dalog, Daza de Jesus, de Venecia, Defensor Lawrence, Defensor Michael, De Los Santos, De Loso Montalia, Di Maporo Abdullah, Di Maporo Khalid, Duavit, Duali, Duterte, Di Faustino Ino, Di Faustino Michael, Di Ian, Ebcas, Ecleo, Elago, Enverga, Erisa, Erigel, Emita Buhain, Escudero, Espina, Espino, Estrella, Fariñas, Ria, Fariñas, Rudis, Fernandez, Fernando, Ferrer, Juliet, Ferrer, Luis, Flores, Fortun, Fortuno, Frasco, Fentebella, Gaite, Garbin, Garcia, Jose Enrique, Garcia, Pablo Jam, Garcia, Vincent, Garin, Janet, Garin, Sharon, Gasataya, Gatchalian, Gato, Heron, Go, Ed, Go, Mark, Gonzaga, Gonzales, Aurelio, Gonzales, Neptali, Gonzales, Sandro, Goriseta, Guico, Gulyas, Guya, Haresco, Hataman, Hernandez, Herrera, D, Hofer, Halusho, Xavier, Jimenez, Co, Elisa, Co, Wilton, Konghun, Labad-Labad, Lacson, Lacson Noel, Lagman, Lagon, Lara, Lazatin, Leachon, Legarda, Lim, Lim Kaichong, Lopez, Loyola, Lusotan, Macapagal Arroyo, Maceda, Madrona, Malapitan, Mangawang, Mangudadatu, Marcoleta, Mariano Hernandez, Marino, Marquez, Martinez, Matba, Matugas, Mendoza, Momo, Natividad, Nagaño, Nava, Nieto, Noel, Nograles, Jericho, Nograles, Fidel, Nolasco, Nunez, Malañaon, Oaminal, Olivares, Ong Jose, Ong Ronnie, Ordanes, Ortega, Oano Dizon, Pacquiao Alberto, Pacquiao Rogelio, Padiernos, Paduano, Palma, Pancho, Panotes, Peña, Pichay, Pimentel, Pineda, Plaza, Puno, Kimbo, Radaza, Ramirez, Sato, Remulla, Revilla, Reyes, Rivera, Robles, Rodriguez, Roman, Romero, Romualdez Martin, Romualdez Yeda, Romualdo Romulo, Roque, Sakdalan, Sagabarria, Sakaluran, Salceda, Silimbangon, Salo, Salvador, Tambunting, Sanchez, Sangcopan, Santos Recto, Sarmiento, Saulog, Sabellano, Siao, Silverio, Singson, Singson Mihan, Sinsuat, Swansing Estrelita, Swansing Horacio, Suarez Aleta, Suarez David, Suntay C. Alvarado, Taduran Talyado, Tan Alisa, Tan Angelina, Tan Samir, Tan Shari, Tan Sherny, Tejada, Teves Arnolfo, Teves Jose, Bianco Tolentino, Torres Gomez, Tulfo Tupas, Tutor, P. Alan, T. Diego, Umali Alfonso, Umali Victoria, Unabia Ungad, Uy Juliet, Uy Rolando, Valeriano, Valmayor Vargas, Vargas Alfonso, Velasco, Veloso, Vergara Villa, Villarferte, Villanueva Eduardo, Villanueva Noel, Villar, Villaraza, Suarez, Villaricas, Violago, Yap Eric, Yap Victor, Yu, Zamora Ronaldo, Zamora Waikurat, Zarate Zubiri. Second call of members for consideration on third reading of House Bill number 10522. Abante Abaya Abellanosa Abunda Acosta Agaraw Aguinaldo Alvarez Pantaleon Amatong Arenas Arroyo Aumentado Bagatsing Bernos Billones Biron Bulut Kanama Kawagdan Castelo Chungalao Ko Angelica Ko Elizalde Ko Juanco Colliantes Dalipe Daza de Venecia Defensor Michael de los Santos Santos Deloso Montalia Duavit Di Faustino Ino Icleo Enverga Ermita Buhayin Espino Fariñas Rudis Fernandez Fernando Flores Fortun Garbin Garcia Vincent, Garin Sharon, Gasataya, Go Ed Gonzaga, Gonzales Sandro, Guico, Gulyas, Haresco Hataman, Hernandez, Halusos, Co Wilton, Kunghun, Lagman, Leachon, Macapagal Arroyo, Malapitan, Mangudadatu, Marcoleta, Mariño, Matba, Mendoza, Momo, Nograles, Juan Fidel, Nolasco, Núñez Malañaon, Ominal, Ortega, Pacquiao, Alberto, Panotes, Pichay, Pimentel, Rivera, Romero, Romualdo, Sancopan, Saulog, Silverio Singson, Suarez Aleta, Suarez David, C. Alvarado, Talyado, Tan Samir, Tan Sherny, Tejada Teves, Arnolfo, Yanko, Torres Gomez, Tupas, T. Alan, Unabia, Veloso, Villa, Villanueva, Eduardo, Villanueva Noel, Villarasa Suarez, Villarica, Zamora Waikurat, Zubiri.
With 196 members voting in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and 0 abstentions, House Bill number 10522 is hereby approved on the third and final reading. Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move for the consideration and third reading of House Bill number 10556. For this purpose, may I request that the Secretary General be directed to read the title of the measure and thereafter to call the roll for nominal voting. I so move, Madam Speaker.
The Secretary General is directed to read the title of the measure and call the roll for nominal voting.
House Bill number 10566, an act establishing the Baguio City High School for the Arts and appropriating funds therefore. Roll call of members for consideration on third reading of House Bill number 10556. Abante, Abaya, Bellanosa, Abu, Abeg, Saldivar, Abunda, Costa, Costa Alba, Adyong, Advincula, Agabas, Agaraw, Aglipay, Aguinaldo, Albano, Almario, Alonte, Alvarez Franz, Alvarez Genaro, Alvarez Pantaleon, Amante Matba, Matong Angara, Aragones, Arbison, Arenas, Arroyo, Atienza, Mentado, Babasa, Bagatsing Balindong, Banyas Nograles, Barba, Barbers, Baronda, Barsaga, Bascug, Bautista, Bautista Bandigan, Belmonte, Benitez, Bernos, Biazon, Billones, Biron, Bolilia, Bondok, Bordado, Bravo, Brosas, Bulot, Bustos, Kabatbat, Kabochan, Cabredo, Cagas, Calderon, Calisto, Caminero, Campos, Canama, Kawagdan, Cardema, Cari, Castelo, Castro Franz, Castro Fredenil, Cayetano Alan, Cayetano Laarni, Celeste Chato, Chipeco, Chunggalaw, Ko Angelica, Ko Elizalde, Ko Juanco, Colliantes, Crisologo, Cua, Quaresma, Cueva, Culyamat, Dagok, Dalipe, Dalog, Daza, De Jesus, De Venecia, Defensor Lawrence, Defensor Michael, De Los Santos, De Losa Montalia, De Maporo Abdullah, De Maporo Khalid, Duavit, Duhali, Duterte, Di Faustino Ino, Di Faustino Michael, Di Ian, Ebca Secleo, Elago, Enverga, Erice, Erigel, Ermita Buhain, Escudero, Espina, Espino, Estrella, Fariñas Ria, Fariñas Rudis, Fernandez, Fernando, Ferrer Juliet, Ferrer Luis, Flores, Fortuno, Frasco, Fentebella, Gaite, Garbin, Garcia Jose Enrique, Garcia Pablo Jan, Garcia Vincent, Garin Janet, Garin Sharon, Gasataya, Gatchalian, Gato, Heron, Goed, Gomark, Gonzaga, Gonzales Aurelio, Gonzales Nepli, Gonzales Sandro, Goriseta, Gico, Gulyas, Guya, Haresco, Hataman, Hernandez, Herrera D, Hofer, Haloso, Javier Jimenez, Ko Elisa, Ko Wilton, Kunghun, Labad-Labad, Lacson, Noel, Lagman, Lagon, Lara, Lasating, Liachon, Legarda, Limlim, Kaichong, Lopez, Loyola, Lusotan, Makapagal, Arroyo, Maceda, Madrona, Malapitan, Mangawang, Mangudadatu, Marcoleta, Mariano Hernandez, Marino, Marquez, Martinez, Matba, Matugas, Mendoza, Momo, Natividad Naganyo, Nava, Nieto, Noel, Nograles Jericho, Nograles Fidel, Nolasco, Nunez Malaniaon, Oaminal, Olivares, Ong Jose, Ong Ronnie, Ordanes, Ortega, Uano Dizon, Pacquiao Alberto, Pacquiao Rogelio, Padiernos, Paduano, Palma, Pancho, Panotes, Peña, Pichay, Pimentel, Pineda, Plaza, Puno, Kimbo, Radasa, Ramirez Sato, Remulla, Revilla, Reyes, Rivera, Robes, Rodriguez, Roman, Romero, Romualdez Martin, Romualdez Sieda, Romualdo, Romulo Roque, Sakdalan, Sagarbaria, Sakaluran, Salceda, Salimbangon, Salo, Salvador Tambunting, Sanchez, Sangcopan, Santos Recto, Sarmiento, Saulug, Savellano, Shao, Silverio, Singson, Singson Mihan, Sinsuwat, Swansing Estrelita, Swansing Horacio, Suarez Aleta, Suarez David, Suntay, si Alvarado, Taduran, Talyado, Tan Alaysa, Tan Angelina, Tan Samir, Tan Sharian, Tan Sherni, Tejada, Teves Arnolfo, Teves Jose, Tiangco, Tolentino, Torres Gomez, Tulfo, Tupas, Chotor, T. Alan, T. Diego, Umali Alfonso, Umali Victoria, Unabia, Ungab, Uy Juliet, Uy Rolando, Valeriano, Valmayor, Vargas, Vargas Alfonso, Velasco, Veloso, Vergara, Villa, Villafuerte, Villanueva Eduardo, Villanueva Noel, Villar, Villaraza Suarez, Villarica, Villago, Yap Eric, Yap Victor, Yu, Zamora Ronaldo, Zamora Waikorat, Zarate, Zubiri. Second call for consideration on third reading of House Bill number 10556. Abante, Abaya, Abellanosa, Abunda, Acosta, Garao, Aguinaldo, Alvarez, Pantaleon, Amatong, Arenas, Arroyo, Aumentada, Bagatsing, Bernos, Billones, Biron, Bulot, Canama, Cawagdan, Castelo, Chungalao, Co Elizaldi, Cojuangco, Colliantes, Dalipe, De Venecia, Defensor Michael, De Los Santos, Deloso Montalia, Duavit, Ecleo, Enverga, Emerito Buhain, Espino, Fariñas Ruiz, Fernandez, Fernando Flores, Fortun Garbin, Garcia Vincent, Garin Sharon, Gasataya, Goed, Gonzaga, Gonzales Aurelio, Gico, Gullas, Haresco, Hataman, Hernandez, Halosos, Wilton, Kunghun, Lagman, Liachon, Macapagal Arroyo, Malapita, Marcoleta, Marino, Matba, Mendoza, Momo, Nograles, Juan, Nolasco, Nunez Malaniaon, Uwaminal, Ortega, Pacquiao, Alberto Panotes, Pichay Pimentel, Rivera, Roman, Romero, Romualdo, Sangcopan, Saulug, Silverio, Singson, Suarez Aleta, Suarez David, C. Alvarado, Tan Samir, Tan Sherni, Tejada, Teves Arnolfo, Tiangco, Torres Gomez, Tupas, T. Alan, Unabia, Veloso, Villa, Villanueva Eduardo, Villanueva Noel, Villaraza Suarez, Villarica, Zamora Waikorat, Zubiri.
With 199 members voting in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and 0 abstentions, House Bill number 10556 is hereby approved on third and final reading. Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move for the consideration on third reading of House Bill numbers 10464 and 10519, printed copies of which distributed to the members pursuant to the rules of the House. For this purpose, I may request the Secretary General be directed to read the title of the bill and thereafter to call the roll for nominal voting. So move, Madam Speaker.
The Secretary General is directed to read the title of the measures and call the roll for nominal voting.
House Bill number 10464, an act establishing in the city of Iloilo, province of Iloilo, a city hospital to be known as the Iloilo City Hospital and appropriating funds therefore. House Bill number 10519, an act establishing in the municipality of Mayoyao, province of Ifugao, a level 2 general hospital to be known as the Eastern Cordillera Regional Hospital and appropriating funds therefore. Roll call of members for consideration on third reading of House Bill numbers 10464 and 10519. Honorable Representatives Abante, Abaya, Abellanosa, Abu, Abueg Zaldivar, Abunda, Acosta, Acosta Alba, Adyong, Advincola, Agabas, Agarao, Aglipay, Aguinaldo, Albano, Almario, Alonte, Alvarez France, Alvarez Senaro, Alvarez Pantaleon, Amante Matba, Amatong, Angara, Aragones, Arbison, Arenas, Arroyo, Atienza, Aumentado, Babasa, Bagatsing, Balindong, Banyas, Nograles, Barba, Barbers, Baronda, Barzaga, Bascug, Bautista, Bandigan, Belmonte, Benitez, Bernos, Biazon, Billones, Biron, Bolilla, Bondoc, Bordado, Bravo, Brosas, Bulut, Bustos, Kabatbat, Kabutsan, Cabredo, Cagas, Calderon, Calixto, Caminero, Campos, Canama, Cawagdan, Cardema, Cari, Castelo, Castro Franz, Castro Fedinil, Cayetano Alan, Cayetano Laarni, Celeste, Chato, Chipeco, Chungalaw, Ko Angelica, Ko Elizalde, Ko Juan, Ko Colyantes, Crisologo, Kua, Quaresma, Cueva, Kulyamat, Dagook, Dalipe, Dalog, Daza, De Jesus, De Venecia, Defensor Lawrence, Defensor Michael, De Los Santos, De Loso Montalia, Dimaporo Abdullah, Dimaporo Khalid, Duavit, Duhali Duterte, Di Faustino Ino, Di Faustino Michael, Di Ian, Ebcas, Ecleo Elago, Enverga Irisa Irigel, Ermita Buhayin, Escudero Espina Espino, Estrella Fariñas Ria, Fariñas Ludis, Fernandez Fernando, Ferrer Juliet, Ferrer Luis, Flores Fortun, Fortuno, Frasco, Fuentebella, Gaite, Garbin, Garcia Jose Enrique, Garcia Pablo Jan, Garcia Vincent, Garin Janet, Garin Sharon, Gasataya, Gatchalian, Gato, Heron, Go Ed, Go Mark, Gonzaga, Gonzales Aurelio, Gonzales Nepoli, Gonzales Zandro, Goriseta, Guico, Gulyas, Guya, Haresco, Hataman, Hernandez, Herrera D. Hofer, Holeso, Xavier Jimenez, Ko Elisa, Ko Wilton, Konghun, Labad-Labad, Lakson, Laksonoel, Lagman, Lagon, Lara, Lasatin, Leachon, Legarda, Lim, Limagay Chong, Lopez, Loyola, Lusotan, Makapagal, Arroyo, Maceda, Madrona, Malapitan, Mangawang, Mangudadato, Marcoleta, Mariano, Hernandez, Marino, Marquez, Martinez, Matba, Matugas, Mendoza, Momo, Natividad, Nagaño, Navan, Nieto, Noel, Nograles, Jericho, Nograles, Fidel, Nolasco, Nunez, Malañaon, Ominal, Olivares, Ong Jose, Ong Ronnie, Ordanes, Ortega, Uano Dizon, Pacquiao Alberto, Pacquiao Rogelio, Padiernos, Paduano, Palma, Pancho, Panotes, Peña, Pichay, Pimentel, Pineda, Plaza, Puno, Kimbo, Radaza, Ramirez, Sato, Remulla, Revilla, Reyes, Rivera, Robes, Rodriguez, Roman, Romero, Romualdez, Martin, Romualdez, Yeda, Romualdo, Romulo, Roque, Sakdalan, Sagarbaria, Sakaluran, Salceda, Salimbangon, Salo, Salvador, Tambunting, Sanchez, Sancopan, Santos Recto, Sarmiento, Saulog, Savillano, Xiao, Silverio, Singson, Singson Mihan, Sinsuat, Sinsin, Estrellita, Sonsing Horacio, Suarez Aleta, Suarez David, Suntay, si Alvarado, Taduran, Talyado, Tan Alisa, Tan Angelina, Tan Samir, Tan Shari, Tan Sherny, Tejada, Teves Arnolfo, Teves Jose, Tianco, Tolentino, Torres, Gomez, Tulfo, Tupas, Tutor, Alan, T. Diego, Umali Alfonso, Umali Victoria, Unabia, Ungab, Uy Juliet, Uy Rolando, Valeriano, Valmayor, Vargas, Vargas Alfonso, Velasco, Veloso, Vergara, Villa, Villafuerte, Villanueva, Eduardo, Villanueva, Noel, Villar, Villarasa Suarez, Villarica, Violago, Yap Eric, Yap Victor, Yu Zamora Ronaldo, Zamora Waikorat, Zarate, Zubiri. Second call of members for consideration of on third reading of House Bill numbers 10464 and 10519. Honorable Representatives, Abante, Abaya, Abunda, Acosta, Acosta, Alba, Agaraw, Alvarez, Pantaleon, Amatong, Arenas, Aumentado, Bagatsing, Bernos, Billones, Biron, Bulut, Cardema, Cari, Castelo, Chongalaw, Co, Angelica, Co, Elizalde, Co, Juanco, Cueva, De Venecia, Defensor, Michael, Duavit, Enverga, Erice, Espino, Fariñas, Rudis, Fernandez, Fernando, Garbin, Garbin, Sharon, Tesataya, Gonzales, Sandro, Conghun, Leachon, Mangudadato, Marcoleta, Marino, Martinez, Matba, Mendoza, Nograles, Juan, Fidel, Nunez, Malañaon, Pacquiao Alberto, Panotes, Pichay, Pimentel, Pineda, Revilla, Roman, Romero, Sinsuat, Suarez Aleta, Suarez David, C. Alvarado, Tan Angelina, Tan Samir, Tan Sharian, Tan Sherny, Tejada, Torres Gomez, T. Alan Velosa, Villar, Villarasa, Suarez, Villarica.
With 229 members voting in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and 0 abstentions, House Bill number 10464 is hereby approved on third and final reading. With 199 members voting in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and 0 abstentions, House Bill number 10519 is hereby approved on third and final reading. Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move that we immediately transmit to the Senate all the measures that were approved on the third and final reading. I so move, Madam Speaker.
Is there any objection? The chair hears none. The said bicameral conference committee is hereby approved. The Secretary is directed to transmit all bills to for third reading. A Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, we are in receipt of the bicameral conference committee report on the disagreeing provisions of House Bill number 8080 and Senate Bill number 1907, instituting a policy of inclusion and services for learners with disabilities. Madam Speaker, in accordance with our rules, I move that we ratify the said bicameral conference committee report. I so move, Madam Speaker.
Those who are in favor say aye. Those who are against say nay. The ayes have it. The said bicameral conference committee report is hereby ratified. Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move that we elect the following members on bicameral conference committee to reconcile the disagreeing provisions of the House Bill number 8097 and Senate Bill number 1411 and nominate the following members: Honorable Cheryl Deloso Montalia, Honorable Yeda Marie Romualdez, Honorable Sol Aragones, Honorable Lauren Legarda, Honorable Lawrence Law Fortune, and Honorable Arlene Brosas. I so move, Madam Speaker.
Is there any objection? The chair hears none. The said members are hereby elected as members of the bicameral committee. A Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move that we adjourn session until tomorrow, December 14, 2022 at 2 p.m. I so move, Madam Speaker. 2021, I'm sorry.
Is there any objection? The chair hears none. Session is adjourned until December 14 at 2 p.m. Okay lang yan. Pag nandiyan si Jam Jam, +20 agad ang majority.